Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today, we're talking about what it means to be generous and the impact it can have on your life.
I think from a mindset perspective, the fact that you're in a position to give is joyful. The fact that you can bless somebody positively is joyful. Start small, but start, because it will break the stranglehold that money has on your life.
Welcome back to the podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm joined by Joe, and today we're going to have a conversation about generosity, and not just in the charitable sense, but overall as a mindset. And we thought it was a very timely subject as we approach the holiday season and the end of the year. Obviously, in what we do, we get a unique picture into people's financial lives, and we see everything from people who give very little or nothing to those who give very abundantly. And oftentimes it isn't based on their income, but more just on their mindset. Scarcity versus abundance, which is a theme we talk a lot about here. And of course, when you operate from abundance, you want to give more. Your hands are open and you trust that that's enough. And of course, when you give, it has this incredible ripple effect. It impacts others, but it also changes you. So Joe is a great person to have this conversation with. Joe, I've known you for years, and truly, when it comes to time, wisdom, money, you are one of the most generous people I know. And I would just love to start off by hearing where you think that came from and why you are so generous.
Thank you. It's really funny. It's like, I think the testament of success in my life will be at the end of my life, a proof that you cannot outgive God. Like, I want my life to be the proof of that. It's like, so it comes honestly from a very spiritual place for me, but also I'll call it like ingrained. So when I was little, I'd have an allowance. My parents provided an allowance. I think it was like $5 a week or whatever it was. Not as like a reward for doing chores, but as a recognition of that effort. And so I got to build up an allowance, but every week I would give 50 cents, to when we'd be at church. I loved taking my 2 little quarters and, putting in the offering plate as it went by. But it was really just a habit that my parents taught me from an early age. I don't think I had any understanding of what that actually meant. As I matured and grew, and, I think a lot of doctors can relate with the life of an entrepreneur, where you have seasons of really high highs and you have seasons of low lows. And I feel like you said, the mindset and the heart towards giving, it's like, it doesn't matter the amount. It's the heart towards it. And I've seen people who've gone through this, like very, very successful people who, when they live lives of generosity, they seem to have a lot more joy than people who do not tend to be generous. And when I was heavy into my financial planning career, I would see this. It was like the surefire way to break the stranglehold that money has on most people's necks. I mean, like a chokehold that just feels like it's never going to release its grip. I think a lot of people can relate to that. But the surefire way, 100% of the time, is the moment you choose to give money, not just time, not just all those other things, but the moment you choose to voluntarily give money away, that stranglehold is immediately loosed. And it's like, without exception, it happens every single time. So again, I think there's a lot of spiritual practices that have to do with like tithing and gifts and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's good, but I really think it's a place, from your heart. And I think one of the most influential stories to me on this was one of my friends growing up. I won't say their name, but they exemplified this inside and out. They had a beautiful home. They had a massive roofing company, very successful. They never locked their front door, so everyone was welcome. They locked it at night when they were sleeping, but they were literally open door, and everyone knew, like, just come on in. You just come on into their house. You help yourself to whatever's in the pantry, whatever it might be. They had a Mastercraft boat. So like back in the day, that was like the boat to have. They would just, if you wanted to use it, just hitch it up and take it, and you take it to the lake and do it. They had one outing that ruined the boat. They literally ruined the boat completely. So they had to buy a new one. New rule was there had to be a family member attending it. But they exemplified generosity from a place of affluence. So they were very successful and they were incredibly giving, money, home, whatever it might be. So that kind of implanted in me at a really early age, like, oh, this is what it looks like to be generous. Um, and I've had a lot of conversation with people about this. One of my friends, he said, I used to, like, when he would write checks to, to church or to an organization or whatever it might be, he felt like he was doing it out of obligation. It was a practice out of obligation. He's like, I used to have to take my hand and, sign it, with the check. And then something happened in his heart and he desired to be generous. And he's like, now I can't wait to be asked. I cannot wait to give. So I think that's, if you're asking like, where did this start? I had early repetitions of this, seeing the joy that came from these people's lives. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to be filled with joy. I don't want to have stress around all this. And then lastly, I'll say I did spend a few years at a foundation. And so I got to work with very, very, like the largest gift that was given was a $350 million gift. When grandma and grandpa died, all $350 million they had went to this foundation. The 4 boys that they had they knew, hey, when mom and dad die, everything's going to charity. And so I got to see the byproduct. I actually got to interview the grandchildren. So grandma and grandpa, 4 boys, and then their grandkids. And they are so proud of their family's legacy. And now they get to give, I forget what it was. I think it was $2 million per year each as a family. They get to give that away because grandma and grandpa allocated those funds for that. And by the way, those 4 boys, unbelievably successful. 2 of them took over the family business and they're doing the same thing, only it's now doubled. So they're going to give $700 million upon their death. And then they have a doctor and then another one who runs a 13,000 person organization. So I feel like if you're looking for the formula for success generationally, this is also a really, really big element where you lose. What you tend to see is like first generation creates the wealth, second generation cares for the wealth, third generation loses the wealth. It's almost like tried and true formula. I don't want that for my family. I don't want that for your family. I don't want that for any family. So one of the ways to break that cycle is through generosity.
I think you're so lucky that you were taught that from such an early age. And I'm trying to teach my kids that. I know for some families it is biblical, spiritual. And for others, it's just like you see the needs in the world. There are endless needs to be met. And it comes down to your values in life. Like, to whom much is given, much is expected. Like if you live by that, spiritual or not, we all see the needs in life. But I will say, from a more spiritual sense, the change that happens in your heart over time if you allow it. Because for me, I grew up with a more scarcity mindset about money, just from what I saw. And then as I started to become more successful and I grew in my faith and friends would talk to me about tithing, I remember a conversation with a friend where I was like, wait, 10%? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, there's no way, we can't afford that. And then I'm like, wait, but then what about giving to charity? Does that count in the 10%? She's like, no, you do 10% and then charity. I was like, oh my gosh. But then I started, and then it becomes, like you said, a more joyful experience as your hands open more and more. You see how we're told, like, test me in this. And when your hands are open, money is meant to flow. It is meant to be shared. And if all of your needs are met, like we work at Terra Firma with that excess. And of course, we want to help you maximize that excess and save big on taxes so that you can determine where it's going to go. But of course, we love to work with people who are generosity minded. So for you, when you see people who are very closed fist with their money, even though all their needs are met, where do you think that comes from?
Well, honestly, I think a lot of it is egocentric. It's, I've earned this. This is mine. And so we hold, and even if people just try this exercise right now, if you clench your fists, it's so tiring. It's exhausting. It's like that. And that's what we're doing so often with money. And then the feeling of release is incredible. So I would encourage people, if that is your mindset, it's like, I earn this. This is all about me. Fine. Do whatever you want with that. I would encourage you, set the ego aside for a second and just understand this truth. it is more blessed to give than to receive. And I think from a mindset perspective, the fact that you're in a position to give is joyful. The fact that you can bless somebody positively is joyful. Your life can be a testament to joy. And when people ask you, like, how are you so, other doctors interview, why are you so joyful all the time? Because I recognize I'm in this position to give. There's a book, and I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, called The Richest Man in Babylon. And that's where the formula of 70, 10, 10, 10 of the income that you receive, you should live off of 70%, 10% for giving, 10% for saving, 10% for investing. Our formula is a little bit different at Terra Firma, but the 10%, like if you were to increase one area only, start with the giving as dictated by this book from the 1930s, really, really impactful book. But I think just that understanding of change your mindset about your position. I know that, like, it's terribly sad when we look around the world, not just our nation, but when we look around the world and the volume of poverty and the way that impacts people. They understand there are really amazing organizations that actually are trying to do their best to help these people, not to give them a hand out, but to give them a hand up. And when you go, okay, I'm going to outsource the time to them, but I'm going to give them the money, just understanding like that will shift how you show up in the world. So I think it starts from that egocentric standpoint of, this is mine, I've earned it, I'm going to do what I want with it. And then there's also, I will tell you, for me, and I don't know if this applies to others, but when I really started taking generosity seriously, every time I gave money or wrote a check to our church or whatever it might be, in my mind, I'm keeping the scorecard. I'm like, well, that could have been a new parachute system. That could have been a new this, that. It's like, oh, there's $2,500, whatever it might be. There was this attachment that I had to that money. It was like, it was earmarked in my mind. But what I have found is when I've released that, it's like, no, this for me, and again, I know each of us are on our own journey, but when I look at like everything that I believe God has given me, he is the one who created my DNA. He is the one who gave me the gifts that I have in order to create the business that we have and serve our members, the relationships that he's brought into my life. All of this is not by me. It is only by him. Therefore, why isn't everything I have subjected to him? And, so from a spiritual perspective, people who have faith, I think there is a deep understanding of what this means, but the tangible, practical application of that, again, can be filled with scarcity mindset. And I just encourage people, break that mindset. It's not serving you well.
And I think just like anything else, if you've never done it, just take a baby step.
Yeah.
Like, people will come in and, oh, this is the first time they're ever investing in alternative assets. Like, okay, then just dip a toe in the water. Or with working out, like you can't start working 7 days a week, work out 1 day a week.
Right.
So it's the same with giving.
When I worked in the foundation, what I realized is there are smarter ways to give. So for people who are really philanthropically inclined and want to give in smarter and smarter ways, like the least smart way is the most common way that people give. They take their income, they take some percentage, and then they give it as cash to their church, their whatever organizations they're passionate about, whatever it might be. That is the least smart way to give. It's still good. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want your giving to go further, there are ways that we can help you orchestrate the way that you do your giving. For example, someone wants to sell their business. Prior to exit, if they know that they want to be philanthropic on the back end of that, for a lot of people, they want to give 10% of what they, earn. If you do not have a contract in place or an acquisition that's set up, you can actually give a portion of your company to charity. They can actually receive equity in the company. And then when you give, they don't pay taxes on it. So think about that. Let's say you sell your company for $100 million and you want to give $10 million, but you're going to exit, you're going to pay taxes. So you're going to give some fraction of that 10 million to the organizations, as opposed to the full 10 million if you do that. Or like one of the most simple ones, let's say you have appreciated stocks. Let's say you bought Apple back in the day. And this is a way to kind of do tax loss harvesting without losses, which is kind of exciting. So you could give appreciated stock to an organization. You could immediately go repurchase that stock at the same price. Now you give it to them and they receive that, and they don't have to pay capital gains on that. And you repurchase the stock, and now you've got to step up in basis. So you've given the same amount of money, but the gift goes further. So part of our process in our planning process is charitable giving. Often at times it includes things like donor advised funds and things like that. But I would encourage you, if you're exploring generosity or if you're already heavily generosity minded, understand there's probably more that you can do. And there's some really cool organizations to get involved with, of like circles of people who are living in that way. One of them that I know is called Generous Giving. And they have a ton of like testimonials and videos and like content and resources to help you on your generosity journey. That's where it started early for me, was getting involved in that organization. So I would just say, more than anything, first step is just, like you said, start baby steps. You don't have to give $1 million away. Start baby steps and pay attention to how you feel. It could be as simple as, paying for somebody's food behind your Starbucks behind you. I don't know, whatever it might be. It could start as simple as that. But what I want you to pay attention to as you do that is, how do I feel in that moment? Was that painful? Did that suck? Or was that like, oh, cool, I can't wait to see it, whatever it might be. So start small, but start, because it will break the stranglehold that money has on your life.
So sometimes our members will ask us, should I do this? Should I buy this item to donate to the school? Or should I donate here? Like, what will the tax implications be? Mm-hmm. And we'll always answer those questions. But I recently was telling someone, like, it should be a heart thing. And like, if you want to give that to the school, it should be because you want to, not necessarily just to get a tax deduction. And I've been learning so much that I think we're going to do an episode with Bob about this, just about like the standard deduction and people not being aware that you automatically, like married filing jointly, get a deduction of $29,200. So if your giving is under that, you just get that anyway. But if you give more than that, then yes, you're going to. So a lot of people don't always reach that. So giving should not necessarily be for tax benefits. It should be because you want to be generous. Oh. And something I've heard you talk about a lot recently is, of course, we're here growing a business. We are working with a lot of generosity-minded people, and that really drives us. And you said something about increased giving in people, and however many members we have, like, what is the long-term impact of that? So talk me through that.
It's probably my favorite thing to think about. So years ago, I used to coach financial advisors. I used to teach advisors how to build their business. And so across coaching hundreds or maybe even 1,000 plus advisors, what I saw is when true planning was happening, meaning like we're really maximizing everything we can, like we do at Terra Firma, reduce your tax liabilities so that you can grow your wealth. What I have found, and this is anecdotal, we didn't do an official study or anything, but people tended to become about 10% more generous. So if they weren't giving, they tend to philanthropically, their heart grows to about 10%. And a handful of years ago, I launched a website that I haven't done anything with, but it was called Project 1B. And I wanted to have $1 billion impact across my lifetime on the world. Like it's from a generosity perspective. Now, I didn't know what that was going to turn into. So for those of you who don't know, our stated goal, our internal stated goal at Terra Firma is to serve 10,000 members. That's our 2034 target. And I was doing the math on this the other day because we had a member, Erin, who asked us about this. He was like, what are your goals? I thought that was such an insightful question, but it wasn't just what are your goals, but why? And I love that we had the rationale behind it. And I brought this up. So 10,000 members, and let's just say it's an average of $750,000 a year of annual income. That's 10,000 members times 750,000 times 10%. That's $750 million a year. If we're doing our job and doing proper planning, getting you to your goals, and your giving increases by 10%, that's almost $1 billion a year. Wow. Of impact that Terra Firma will have doing positive in the world. Now, it's not like Terra Firma giving. That's us influencing people to use their money for the reasons that are important to them to fulfill what they see their purpose is from a philanthropic standpoint. And that blew my mind. I was like, I got so fired up about that because that is a really serious, tangible impact in our world for good.
That is incredible. And so you said that happens when people have a plan. Like that's what we help them do, right? Is just get clarity. So often people are like, I don't know if some of it comes from that. unknown.
Yes.
Will I have enough? Do I have enough? I don't feel like I have enough, so I can't give. But when you have a clear asset map and investment plan and all of that laid out, then you feel more comfortable to be giving.
Yes.
So I love that impact we can make.
Well, and I think it's important. Like, if I were to boil our process down to the most essential elements, or distill it down to the essence, our job is to engage with somebody, to take in all of their information. So all of their accounts, all of their assets, all of their debts, all of their incomes, all their expenses. So we just take all of that in. We ingest that, and then we say, here's where you're at holistically. Here's everything. Most people have never even seen a document like that. Oh, my whole financial life on one place, because it's so disjointed in our industry. So we show them, here's where you're at now. Here's where we think you need to be in order to maximize your wealth building and reduce your tax liability. So we give them, that's the plan. And then here's these steps in order to get there. So at its essence, that's what it is. Ingest everything in your world, show you where you're at, show you where I need to be, and the steps to get there. That is it. I just said it a lot easier than it actually is.
Sure.
But when people see that plan and they go, oh, my kids' college funds are totally funded by the time they're going to get there. The dream home is paid for in cash by the time we get there. And we have leftover. Great. We can give, because none of this is going with me when I die. Right. And so I think that's the psychology behind when people holistically understand their whole financial life and see the plan and go, yeah, we're totally good.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from, I think.
That's great. So we're here to give you clarity. And just overall, we're here to help you pay less to the government. We do believe, like Bob says, you got to leave some meat on the bone. The government has to run. But when you're very successful, you are paying a huge chunk. And we help you lower that chunk so that you can not only build your future, but become more generous too.
Right.
And so any last words?
I do have last words. And I think these are really important. So, and this ties that whole concept together, reducing the tax liability, meaning just sending dollars to the government to do the things that should be done by normal, good human beings. And I'll use the church as an example. So our church SNAP benefits are about to be cut off. There are people who are truly experiencing like food hunger, all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot that's going on. And I had a handful of friends who posted on social media. They're like, hey, if you're going without and you are hungry, DM me. We will help you. Our church did the same thing. Do you think dollars are better spent by the church fulfilling those things or by the government? The government is always going to waste dollars. It just bleeds dollars like nothing else. However, organizations like a church or a ministry or a nonprofit, they usually are operating off of fumes. And so they maximize every dollar. So I'm just saying, I think just from a pure self-serving standpoint, if these charitable organizations can prop up the people who truly need help, that alleviates some of that from the government needing to do it. Right? And we've heard Bob talk about this before. The government incentivizes the things that get work off their plate that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so retirement, like all these kinds of things. So this, in a self-serving way, is when you give, you're improving the lives of the people around you, and you're doing it more efficiently than it would be done otherwise.
So good. All right, Doc, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Joe, thanks for everything you shared. Hit subscribe, share with your friends. If you're not working with us yet, you probably should be. So get in touch. And until next time, go be a wealth maverick.